Great stuff. A very warm welcome, everybody, and welcome to this webinar session on the Learner Intervention Planning Report Insights. My name is Musa Simelani, and I'm joined today by IK, and the two of us are going to be taking you through the power of this report that uses new technology that allows us to predict the outcomes of learners, whether or not they'll be passing the term or the year. And it also gives us a recommendation on the kind of intervention we should explore with these learners. But before we get started, I can myself do wish to apologize for those of us who are in yesterday's session. As a result of load shedding, yesterday's session was severely disrupted. And while we expected it and had some contingencies, it coincided with a network outage as well, and we found ourselves with one webinar where we've had to cancel since we've started a year ago from now. But we do promise that we have put together some contingencies, and we've had meetings with various stakeholders in the organization where we brainstorm some really good ideas to ensure that something like this never happens again. But we do want to extend our apologies, particularly to those who were inconvenienced by yesterday's session. With that out of the way, colleagues, let's just have a look at the objectives that we've put together for this session. And first of all, we're going to go through the importance of data submission and data accuracy. We're going to go through how to understand and analyze the intervention planning report. Thirdly, we're going to explore some insights for the colleagues that are in a circuit or district level or above, some examples of an analysis that can be done there. And we don't want to leave our colleagues that are in the school level, the SMTs, HODs, educators, and principal. We also have a session for you where we investigate the number of learners failing a home language and learners recommended for immediate intervention. All of that will be what we are covering in today's session. So as I've promised, let's first start by having a conversation about the importance of data submission and data accuracy. And this subject becomes very important, especially when we are talking about this report, the Learner Intervention Planning Report, because this particular report it's dependent on variables that we are taking from different places in the school's database for this technology to be able to predict which learners are needing intervention. So as a result, it's very critical, particularly for this report, that all the data be accurate and be timely submitted and up to date in the school. Right. However, here's some other benefits that I think we can all appreciate as a result of making sure that we do those weekly submissions in our school and ensuring that our term to date submission is done on time. Firstly, it allows visibility of weekly attendance of weekly attendance of learners and educators, and especially in today with COVID-19 and the policies and regulations that come with that. If your school is platooning or your school is doing rotation, it would be important to keep a track of how often learners are absent to ensure that we're not losing learning days. So if you are uploading on a weekly basis, you can go on the dashboard and see exactly how the trends in attendance are doing in your school or circuit or province or even district. It allows us to plan early interventions, especially regarding absent educators. And when I talk about absent educators, I think what we need to take away here, colleagues, yes, educators, of course, have the right to be absent for good reason. And, that is not the problem. But the problem that we should rather be focusing on is we need to not think of the educators' absenteeism as days absent. We should rather be thinking of it as number of periods lost. So this educator, if that educator is absent for 5 days, we should be converting that into number of periods lost and allow that to talk to teaching time, allow it to talk to coverage for the term, and for us to answer exactly how much time have we lost, so that we can have an intervention that speaks to that. Right. Thirdly, meet monthly or weekly reporting requirements. As we know, the principal in his job description, one of the things he's responsible for, or maybe not responsible for directly in that he does it directly, but he's certainly accountable. What he's accountable for is the records of the school and the accurate and timely reporting of those records. Then it allows for a regular backup of the school databases. Unfortunately, in certain areas, we've heard of, service level protests in our communities, and often they turn into violence and vandalism that sometimes affects our schools. And God forbid this heartbreaking event happens to your school. But if you have done the job of weekly submissions, you know that the database of your school is available and can be very quickly downloaded again, and you can at least recover those documents that are in the school SASAM system if an event like that should happen. Even with the load shedding happening, it does have a tendency to affect equipment. Your computer might not turn on one day because it's switched off without being properly switched off. And then the question is, what happens to the database there? If you are doing weekly submissions, you can be guaranteed a up-to-date update of your database. Yes, and like I said, you're up to date with your own data, and then during the final term submission, that process will be sped up. So it's very easy to capture the learners week by week, rather than trying to capture all those days in the term at the end of the term. That might be pressure, especially in schools where we have one data capture and every single person is looking to that data capture to input their data. So it allows for that work to be mitigated somewhat, because we've been doing it weekly. So we only catching up on what is yet to be done, instead of having to do the entire terms capturing at one go, which often also leads to errors. Okay, and it allows for accurate allocation of school resources and services. As you know, the learner count affects the kind of resources that we have in the school, and if that goes up or down, if that's accurately recorded, you can have those resources come in time. And of course, if you notice there on the dashboard that there's actually an educator that you don't have, and you're seeing how it's affecting a subject, and you're seeing how it's affecting the periods, you can then have evidence to motivate a request for those services and for those educators and resources. So with that out of the way, I hope that slide has spoken to us to the crucial benefits that we get from ensuring that the process of uploading our data happens on time and happens accurately. We ensure that the flow of the data, the flow of the information from the school all the way to SASMs, that there are checks. The way we moderate marks when we mark assessments, the same moderation needs to be approached in terms of the data that's being captured. With that out of the way, colleagues, let's now talk about this intervention planning report that is very much dependent on this process being done. And the intervention report, the learner intervention report, or as we would call it sometimes, the LIP report, LIP, learner intervention planning report, manifests itself in three ways. And in this slide, I want to introduce us to all three ways that this report can be found on the dashboard. And first of all, if you are in a provincial, district, or circuit level, there is the learner intervention planning summary, right? So the word that you want to take away there is summary. It's the LIP summary. So in the summary, it's exactly as it says. It summarizes the report, telling us what's happening in the schools in your district, highlighting how that school is performing compared to its context in the circuit and the district, highlights even home language to say how are the home language marks. So this report is a summary of what we're seeing in the school, and is based on the main report, which is found in the school level. So the one that we find in the school level is the Learner Intervention Planning Report, the LIP report. So this one is the core of this report, and this is the one that I'll be talking to the most in today's session. It's an Excel sheet, and of course, Excel workbooks can have multiple sheets in it. So this one has 3 sheets inside of it, and those sheets, they talk to the different measurements of performance and recommends intervention on all level. It talks to a summary, it talks to a subject analysis, and then finally it talks to a learner by learner a learner focus. So in the third one, you actually have the name of the learner and see exactly how that learner is performing, depending on which grade you printed it for. And then finally, you have the Learner Intervention Insights Report. So this one, it's exactly like the name says, it's an insight report. So it does a summarized view of what we get on the main report. So 3 reports there, and I'm happy just to summarize them again. There's the summary report that we get at circuit and district level. There's the Learner Intervention Planning Report, which is the main report, which has the detail, the large detail of the information. And then there's the Insight, which is the PDF report, which is a shorter version of what the LIP is. So, but the one, if all of these number of reports are a little confusing, the one that I would want you to focus on, or the one that you want to leave knowing, whatever level you are on, is in fact this Learner Intervention Planning Report that's printed at the school level. That is the one that is the centerpiece of these reports. Now that we know the different manifestations of this report, let me now just talk to us a little bit. I've alluded to it, but let me talk to us a little bit about what this report is. As you can see, it's a Learner Intervention Planning. It's an early warning system. An early warning system. You know, the cars these days, when you are reversing, you will hear a beeping sound. Sometimes there'll be a camera, and the beep will get worse the closer you get to maybe hitting an impact with the car. That's a nice example of an early warning system. Before disaster happens, you get a warning that tells you you're getting closer and closer to something of a problem and an issue happening. So what this report actually does is it gives us an early warning of those learners that if we don't do anything about them, they will probably fail the term. And yes, they will probably fail the year. But the extra added advantage here is that the report also tells us what sort of intervention we should be providing these learners, right? So I'll leave that discussion there for now, but I'll get deeper in it. And as you can see here, I have a screenshot of the dashboard, and you can see all 3 of those reports: the Learner Intervention Insights, the Learner Intervention Planning, and the Learner Intervention Planning Summary, which I spoke about in the previous page. So it's an early warning system to identify learners and subject requiring different levels of intervention. Let me just stop for a moment on that line of different level of intervention. Colleagues, if we are painting all the learners and all the subjects with the same brush and are having the same approach of intervention to all our subjects, it's very likely that we won't have time to properly implement our intervention, especially in 2021, where we're wrestling with COVID policy that has halved our teaching and learning time. So we want to prioritize learners, we want to prioritize subjects, we want to make the most of resources, time being the chief of which, by making sure that the kind of intervention that we're providing a learner or a class or a subject is appropriate. It is dictated to us by the data that we are seeing. So that's what we want to take away from here, different levels of intervention. Even our rotations, I feel like our rotations could be better informed by what this kind of report is saying. So we focus on where our time is most going to give the reward, especially seeing as our time is minimized. And you might ask why this report While it segments learners according to predicted performance so that the intervention can be tailored and targeted. IK and I, for the past couple of weeks, have gone through several reports where we were showing you how you can gain insights that will predict for you which learners need your focus. So this report takes that work away for you in that it predicts for you. It does the analysis that you would typically do yourself. Instead of sitting there with the mark schedule, separating learners according to their levels, you have a report that does this for you and also tells you what sort of intervention it recommends. Now, it also identifies the key combination of characteristics that predict year and learner outcomes. I think I've spoken to this a great deal. And again, there's that word again, differentiate. Same thing here, requiring different levels is that same word again. Differentiate between learners who need a class or a school-based intervention. And I will properly break down what a class and a school-based intervention looks like in a later slide. How does it work? Well, it uses data sourcing and cleansing. It uses predictive analysis using data on learner performance variables, on attendance, and on environmental variables. Now, the environmental variables can be the teacher to learner ratio is an example of the environmental variables, and it tests the model. So as you can see here, this report takes a wealth of information and does the, as an AI, a fourth industrial revolution technology behind the dashboard, puts this information together and predicts for us which learners and subjects need what kind of attention so that we can take care of them. Now, as you can see here, I'm putting there that this report is 85% to 94% accurate in its predictions, which is extraordinarily reliable. Anything I think above 80% in a data speaking term is reliable, but this report often gives us 94% and around there in terms of the accuracy of this prediction. So we can trust it even more than what we can do with our own calculations as humans, right? So I love this report. And, I'm gonna now go into, I think before I dig deep into this report, I wanna show you how this prediction and analytics model works. This prediction and this predictive analysis is also available on the dashboard, meaning without having to download a detailed report, you can actually go to the dashboard and see for yourself right there on the dashboard some of these predictions being live. And that's what I'm going to talk about in maybe not the next slide, but a slide after that. So in the next slide, what I want to do first before I go into that is actually talk about some additional information to take away about this report. First of all, it's a report that's only available on the dashboard. Unfortunately, you can't find this report anywhere else. Like I'm saying, using sophisticated mechanics and AI to predict what is going to happen to our learners. The insights are based on report marks instead of exam test marks. In other words, it's using the mark that the learner would be going home with in the report to make these insights. The feature does not tell us what to do, but rather where the challenge is. So even in the previous webinar, we were talking about root cause analysis and how to find out the causes for the problem so that you approach the problem in a prioritized manner. Even there, we emphasize that this is not for us to tell you what to do, but rather to find out where the challenge is. This report works very much the same. It simply tells us where the challenge is. It doesn't make any recommendations on what the recommendation should look like. And I've already seen a question around this. So one of the colleagues has actually asked a question in today's session to say, for foundational phase, this report doesn't work. That's absolutely true, colleagues. And the reason for that is we know grade R to grade 3 usually have really good results. It's not often that you see underachieving foundation band, grade R and grade 3. And I mean, I stand to be corrected. I don't think it's even possible for a learner to fail or to repeat grade R or grade 3, but I stand to be corrected there. So as a result of that, the model finds it difficult because it's got nothing to compare with, because all the marks are usually good. So as a result, the report is not available for grade R and for grade 3. And even if it was available there, it wouldn't give us useful data, simply because of the normally high achievement we're seeing in grade R to grade 3. I think this one is an important one. It does not predict progression rates. It's unable to tell you, okay, these are the learners that are going to be progressed. That, unfortunately, is a domain of policy. And like I said, it's not telling you what to do to progress a learner. That would be telling you what to do, but simply tells you where the challenge is. However, it does make for good data to input in the process of putting together our progression rates. And as I've noted, the accuracy is above 85%, and it's available in term 1 for the previous year and from term 2 onwards in the year that we are on. So now let me go back to the discussion where I said you can actually go to the dashboard and actually see for yourself this prediction model in effect. And here I'm looking at the grade 11 in the school. I'm in the grade view, as you can see. And if you're wondering how you get to the grade view, very simple. When you land on your dashboard, wherever you land on your dashboard, when you're in your home, you're seeing the name of your school or your entity. If you click on the report mark pass rate, it will take you to the part of the page where the report mark or the achievement is been divided by the grades. So you'll see there grade 12, grade 11, grade 10, etc. You'll have their performance. If you click on the grade 12, for example, or if you click on the grade 11, in my example, you will see there that it will take you to this part where you are seeing now the aggregates and the summary, but for grade 11. So that's how you get there. So as you can see from grade 11, all the pie charts look very normal. It's the same pie charts. But then if you're in a grade level, only at a grade level, you will start seeing this other pie chart here, which says learners with recommended intervention. So I've blown that up. And if I were to hover on top of it, it will give me the picture and explain to me what's happening here. So you can see from the pie chart, I've got almost like 25% of the learners being red and just a little bit under 25% or a quarter of those learners being orange. There's some learners here who are in a darker gray, and then there are learners here who are white. What does all this mean? So the red talks to learners who are recommended for immediate intervention. It's 25% of them. Remember, I told you that this report tells you the kind of intervention it recommends. So it's an immediate intervention that is recommended here for these learners, the 25% in grade 11. Then there's 24% who are recommended for a light intervention. Then there's 37 who are tagged as these learners just need to be monitored. And then we have 14% of learners the prediction wasn't able to help us with because there's missing data. Remember, I said to you, this report, this model, this feature requires data from different sources. So if the school is missing certain sources, the attendance, the subject is not tied to a learner, etc., there's quite a lot of that data. If that data is not coming out correctly, it won't make the prediction, and we'll say, I just don't know enough to predict 14% of these learners. But now, what does immediate light and monitor mean? Well, as you can see here, the first is the monitor, and apologies there, let me go back. The first is the monitor. Monitor simply means keep the learner motivated and engaged. That means this learner is not performing in a way that predicts that they won't make it at the end of the year. They're doing fine, they're okay. However, we monitor them to ensure that those marks either stay the same or improve. So you keep the learner motivated and engaged. If it's talking about light intervention, means the learner is not doing well, but the situation is not very bad. Some remedial or psychosocial support will usually find this learner coming up at top. But unfortunately, it still stays to us to discover the nature of the remedial and the nature of that psychosocial support. Then finally, of course, is those learners that have been called recommended for immediate intervention, which means it probably needs a combination of not just remedial, but also psychosocial support to find out what other non-curriculum needs does this learner have for us to support. So the long story short there is that you can actually go to the dashboard, and if you click on the grade, it will take you to this part of the page that will show you this pie chart where the model or the feature is at work, predicting for your grade which learners need which support. Now, staying still with the dashboard, you can also see the intervention status, the immediate light or monitor status per learner. So you can actually go to the learners themselves in the school and see them and see what sort of intervention status this learner is recommended for. So again, when you land on your dashboard, when you're in your home, let's say your home is your school, the name of the school. When you land there, you'll see there at the bottom of the pie charts, you will see there will be two tabs there. One says educator and one says learners. If you click on the one that says learners, you will see all the learners in your grade. And for example, you can see from my screenshot here, I've got this first learner is in grade 7. They've never been absent. However, the report marks are at 27%. They are 1 year behind in terms of the age versus grade. In the previous year, they were not promoted. They didn't pass. And they are displaying in this report the same trajectory of failing again. And those details and other details, you can see there the feature is saying this learner is recommended for immediate intervention, remedial, and psychosocial assistance. Then I have another learner here with the light intervention. Also, their information, you can see they are progressed in the previous year. Then we've got a learner who is in 45%. They're passing. They are in the safe area. And they're on track. They were promoted in the previous year. The recommendation for that learner is to monitor. So if a learner comes into your office, principal, we strongly recommend you open the dashboard. When the learner is in front of you, the learner is there for one or the other disciplinary need. For example, might be a nice habit to go to your dashboard to look for this learner and see exactly what sort of, how are they looking in terms of the intervention. And you can allow that to talk to that session. Of course, the name of the learner would be here as well. I've just hidden it because we need to protect personal data. And if you click on that learner, you will see it will take you to the page where you see the learner. Here, it will have their name. Of course, again, the name has been anonymized here. But for you, principal, for you, SMT, when you come here, you actually see the name and the surname if you're doing this in your school. My learner here is learner 1951778 John. And as you can see here, the learner is recommended for light intervention. So when you come into contact with that learner and you look in your dashboard, you already know that this learner, over and above the disciplinary issue that's brought the learner in front of you, the learner is also in need of light intervention, which might be of a psychosocial one, which I leave to the powers of the SMT to assist in. Right? So what I covered there is just some of the ways this model can be seen in the dashboard that predicts these learners. But I think what you want to take away is the overall aim is to help the school to save time analyzing data. That's a big one. It's easy just to save time analyzing data. But this analysis of data can turn into a 5-day affair. But the dashboard, in a snap, you download the report and it tells you all you need to do. In the SLIP report or learner intervention planning report. It's able to identify factors driving failure rate. You've been tasked, the whole school improvement and your school improvement plans, and you need to put information there to say, why is the learners failing? What sort of improvement is the school able to do? Well, this report will help us identify the factors that can be part of that plan. All right. So, and some of the points that are there, you can see I've already mentioned them. The whole idea here is to make the most of the time that we have in our hands by using all the tools that we can find, and this is definitely one of them. And as you can see there, it allows us to prioritize intervention, and the whole idea is for us to improve pass rates and throughput rates and provide evidence for planning during discussions. So all right, so I think that's all the talking we will do today on what this report is and how helpful it can be for our analysis. I think now let's get straight to the topic on how we actually access this report. So, of course, when you land on the dashboard, so let me first speak about the summary report, which is at a district and a circuit level. So as soon as you land on your home, you come here to the reports, and you'll see there under reports, under learner achievement, there's the learner intervention planning summary report. And of course, on top of it is the rest of the reports that I've spoken about. Those of us in the school level, the one of the most interest to us is the learner intervention planning report. It's the one available for us, and it's the one that gives the greatest detail. Now, one of the features that we want to be very aware of this report is, unfortunately, this report is generated at grade level. So it'll only speak to us at a grade level. So if I want to do for my entire school, I would have to print this report for all the grades. But the great stuff is that for that particular grade, all the subjects, all the learners, and all the intervention that this report talks to will be available in here. So if you want it for your entire school, you'll have to print per grade. But the idea here is that the SMT with the HOD responsible either for the grade or the grade in the subject will have a look at this report in those meetings or continually refer to it just to remind us the nature of the intervention that the school is needing. So just to summarize that previous page, you land on the dashboard, you go to reports, and then you will have the learner intervention planning, the one at the school level and the one that is summarized for our officials that are in circuit and district level. So let me talk about the main one now, the one that is printed at school level. So as I've said, of course, because it's an Excel, as we know, Excel is a worksheet and it can have a number of sheets within that worksheet. Think of it as a folder with 3 pages in it. Think of this report that way. It's a report that came in a folder. There's 3 pages in it. The first page there is a page called summary. So let's talk about what's in that summary page. As we can see here, the summary page will have the subject, and then it will have an intervention for that subject. Very simple, very simple and very straight to the point. So for example, if I am let's say an English first additional language HOD or educator, I can come here and see, okay, English first additional language is in need of a class level intervention, right? And what is a class level intervention? It simply means 50% or more of learners are failing the subject, or 50% or more learners are failing the subject, or the class is at the bottom 25 of the district. So whichever one comes first, if it's at the bottom 25% of the district, or 50% or more of the learners are failing the subject, then it will be a class level. What this is saying is that a majority of these learners are having an issue. So whatever intervention we bring about, just taking learners through a intervention is not enough. We also have to probably look at the educator to see if they're in need of support, because their subject is having a large number of learners failing. We need to pinpoint not just in the learners, but holistically, because it's a class level intervention that is being recommended. And then we have some data that is feeding this decision that this computer has made, that the dashboard has made here in the lib report. First of all, we can see 67% of the learners are failing the subject. And the number of learners are failing are represented here in a number, 175. I like the number because it also talks to resources, okay? If I'm going to put together classes, if I'm going to put together teachers, whatever intervention, whether it's a camp or a Saturday school, whatever it is that I'm doing, it's going to be, I know that there's 175 learners in file that are going to be needing this attention. And you can see there, I've also put the individual learners have been identified who need support in a different subject. So there's another subject here. If I can just remove the labels here. So we've got another subject called life orientation. This subject has been tagged as it's an individual learner that needs intervention, only because only 9% of the learners are failing. And in terms of a number, out of the 261 learners that do the subject, it's 26 only that are failing. So they represent a very small minority, and probably are speaking to some of that psychosocial and remedial support that we spoke about before. Now, the nice thing about this report is that it also has a summary of this subject discussion here, subject per subject discussion. And, the summary there is talking in a very direct manner. It's saying, in this grade, the number of learners who are due for monitoring, that means they're doing fine. As we can see, there are only 8% of these learners, or almost 9%, which is 23 learners in a number. Learners due for light intervention, it's 20%, almost 21%, 54 of them. And those due for recommended immediate intervention, we can see almost a quarter of them, which is 26%, 70 learners fall under that category. But I do want to bring our attention to this last piece here, colleagues. The number of learners that the learner intervention planning wasn't able to make a decision for is quite high, 43%, only because the data was missing there. So we do ourselves a great favor, ladies and gentlemen, when we ensure that the data is complete, because we allow this report to actually ensure that there's lesser number of learners here where we can't make a prediction for. So for the rest of those learners, we'll have to go to the analysis techniques we spoke about in the learner chart report and various other reports, school achievement report. We'd have to go to those in order for us to assess of those learners what sort of intervention is recommended. Now, let me introduce you now to the second page in this folder. And this one speaks to the subject. And the nice thing here is that it takes the percentage that the subject has achieved and is compared to the school in the context. So the school that I've put here, for example, for mathematics, if I can pick on that, the mathematics result is compared to the mathematic result in the circuit in the district. So I, as a school SMT, know whether this mark is below or above the performance in the schools within my context, which is also very telling and can talk to us about how we are performing as a school, and what is it that is in need of support in our school. As you can see here, for example, mathematics in this circuit for this class is at almost 9% of learners. 9%, that's the average, that's the pass mark, 9%, the class average. And then the provincial mark, as we can see, it's at 20%, almost 21% of that. So almost double that, right? And the district average also a little bit under 20%, but very representative of being twice what we are performing as in the school. Same thing within the circuit level. Then it also talked to us about the number of educators that are registered. And perhaps this is one of the clues we see here. We've got 2 educators for 122 learners. And even the simplest of maths shows that there might be a high educator to learner ratio. This might be good grounds to request for resources. And also, of course, it talks to us as what the problem could be. And as you can see there, the percentage of learners that are failing, 93%. Of learners are failing the subject. And here, as you can see, as we might have guessed correctly, it's a class level intervention that is called for there. Then the last page in this folder is the learner detail. So when we download the learner intervention planning report, we get the summary, the subject detail, the learner detail. And the learner detail is very similar to a schedule, or in other words, very similar to the learner chart report. As we can see here, only with with a lot more information going on here. So each line represents a learner. So if you are seeing on the left of this, you'll be actually seeing the learner's name. You see their age versus their grade, and very quickly the kind of recommendation done for the learner. So we see light intervention, we see immediate intervention, and then we also see unknown. Again, colleagues, the unknown is talking to the fact that the data is incomplete for this learner. Some variable or the other is missing, maybe a mark, maybe attendance. Something is missing here, and the LIP is saying, look, I won't even try to predict. I don't have enough information. So if you want to see less unknowns in this report, we want to tighten up on our submission process on the weekly and on the termly basis. Right. Now I'm looking at time, and I still have this part to do, which is the analysis for the circuit manager. So what I want you to take away here, circuit manager, is that the report for you, if you are printing the summary, this is what it's going to look like. As you can see, it'll just have the name of the school, the district and the circuit, and then it'll have the total numbers of learners with report marks and the number of learners failing a home language, and then it'll give you a percentage for each school. So this one is fairly dramatic. It's very straight to the point, very summarized, as I've said, focuses on a few key information there. And then as you can see here in the top, it's got the learners that are recommended for the different interventions, and it represents them in the number and in the percentage. But how can I, as a circuit manager or as a district official, make use of this detail? Well, I can filter, and I hope you're not annoyed yet about hearing about filtering. It is a very powerful technique that allows us to sort out information. So maybe as a circuit manager, you want to know, what do I focus on? Do I focus on the learners that are failing the home language, or do I focus on the learners that are in need of their immediate intervention? Now, bear in mind that most of the time these two can come together. There can be learners who are both failing the language and are also recommended for immediate. And there might be learners that are failing, but they are not detected as for immediate intervention because it's one subject, and maybe the rate of their failure puts them in a safe area a little bit. So it's up to you to choose which you are going to go for, but you can use filtering to answer the question. And here in this next slide, as I've said, I'm going to be focusing on the district and the circuit level. I've already spoken about the focus and the breakdown. So let me just hurry on that. So here, you're looking at the summary report, and you can see here, the first thing you can do is that you can sort so that you see all your districts. So you can see here, I've got district A, right? And then you can see here, I've got district B. And when I combine the districts that I have, let's just say I only have these two districts, I can see here 47 learners are failing the home language, and 43 learners are recommended for immediate intervention. So which intervention will I do? The home language intervention or those with a high recommendation for immediate? So I mean, you don't want to paint all the learners in all the districts with the same brush. So I would recommend that the first thing you do is in each district, using filtering as I've demonstrated, you count the number of learners who are failing home language. And I can see in district A, I've got the majority failing home language and the minority being recommended for immediate intervention. And for district 2 or district B, I have the majority being recommended for immediate intervention, and then the minorities failing the home language. So I can use filtering there to actually speak to what I'm going to do. This is at the circuit level or above now. Which am I going to focus as an intervention plan from the circuit level, right? And, and here are the totals again, compared to each other. And I can see there for district A, home language might be my focus there based on this analysis. And for district B, those recommended for immediate intervention will be my priority there. Now, of course, even in the class level, we're still able to do this level of, analysis to see how many learners are actually failing the home language. And what you're looking at here is the learner intervention planning. And again, I'm putting the filters and the steps to filtering. Of course, if I remind us, number 1, you click on data. Number 2, you click on filter. And then, first of all, you highlight the labels, right? You click on number 2 here to highlight all those labels, right? Then you click on data. Then from then on, you click on filter. You will know the filter is working if you're seeing small little arrows here on the labels. And then one of the things I can do is I can go to home language now, click the filter on home language and say filter by color. And what that will do then is that it will show me all those learners that are failing home language. And here they are in my example, is 3 learners. And so I know these learners, although they have not been recommended for an immediate intervention, they are failing their home language, which still equals to a fail. And I can have those learners be paid attention to for an intervention. So in summary, ladies and gentlemen, this is a report that you download that tells you which learners or subjects are in need of your attention. It tells you the sort of attention that is due for those learners. And this report lends itself nicely for me to also evaluate those learners that are actually failing just because they're not doing too well on the home language. Is it possible that the home language assigned to this learner, those issues can be quickly identified? I mean, these very specific outcomes for a language. Which of these outcomes is this learner failing from? Are they not able to read for understanding? Are they not able to write? And then that can be the focus of an intervention, a reading and writing intervention. And again, IK and I are not experts. We don't want to push a prescription, but we do want to say, take time to have a look at this report. It's a valuable one that makes our jobs so much easier by giving a high-level analysis without us doing a lot of the work. I've taken over IK's job a little bit because of time, colleagues, and I've put there our poll. You should be seeing the poll on your screen now. Thank you so much for taking the time. Will allow us to attend to some of the questions that came after the question session that IK attended to. But in the meanwhile, colleague, especially because of time, let us point our attention to that poll. Over to you, IK, for the question and answer session.
Thank you so much, Musa. And I just, saying that apologies to the team that we are going few minutes overboard. The time now is 1 minute past one, just because we didn't have the full session yesterday. And we're just requesting for just few extra minutes to just respond to the questions. Colleagues, the next thing that the next thing now is the call to action. What do we do after this? What we do after this is go back to our offices or our workspaces, download this report. Are you at the school level? Are you at the district level? You have the reports that you need to download to be able to allow you make informed decision on how to better support the learners, better support the schools as the case may be. While Musa was speaking, there are actually some very nice question and answers that were coming up. I was able to answer some. Some I probably just left because it's also in line with what we said. There's something that Musa said, as great as this report is, colleagues, if data is not submitted, we lose the meat in this report. The report is not going to be beneficial. Data is very important, not just data, quality data. So please let's ensure that our data's both weekly submission and termly submission are be done accurately. Zolile also posed the question here, which I told her that I would wait and just raise his comment in the Q&A. He says here, what mechanisms are in place to force schools to submit data? What about consequence management? Right? That is very, very ideal. He's asking me, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I'm going to pose it to everyone, right? What mechanism is in place? If we don't submit this data, is it business as usual? Is it okay? We now see the usefulness of the data that we submit. So it's very, very necessary that we continue submitting this data. There's another question here that from an anonymous that is saying, good day, a comment, this will work here in primary school or senior phase where they don't wait on common papers, etc. Right? So it's saying that good day. A comment that he is actually saying that he's actually proposing his comments to say this will work in primary schools or senior phase where they don't wait on common papers. That is actually being a step ahead, right? Being a step ahead. And there's something also that Musa posed out when he was actually talking about this. He talked about, the different subjects, the number of learners failing the different subjects. That is very important also for the educators as well as the subject advisors. Now you can also gauge and see how many learners are actually failing a subject. Is it this class level intervention or is it an individual learner intervention? This will actually assist you, but also always remember that without data, all we have discussed today will be futile. We will not be able to do anything because everything is fueled, everything is enforced by accurate submission. Leonard here is saying, thank you, presenters. Information is so valuable both to schools and to districts. Thank you so much, Leonard. I'm just trying to look if I have covered the comment. Yes, we have a whole lot of questions on access. People see the information that we are showing and they said, how can we have access to this information? People, not sure about, if they can see the report and all that. And as I said, I have said this earlier on, the process of actually getting the information. Also, if you can talk to the next page where they see the information on for the DDD project managers and the help desk. Yes. So please use this to actually reach out to the DDD project manager and managers in your respective provinces and also to the help desk. Leonard here is saying how schools must treat attendance of learners which doing rotation due to COVID. There is also a question on how can absenteeism be captured. Colleagues, we are saying that we are not an authority to tell you how things are actually going to be done. There are policies out there. You can also request this information from your district. They are at the right place to direct you on how attendance capturing is going to be done. And also the actually policies actually guiding, letting you know how this is actually going to be done. But what we are actually saying here is how can you use the data that you actually capture at school level to better support your school and support from the district support the school and from the school level support your learners. I think I have responded to every question here. Musa, I don't know if you have any last words before we call it a day.
Yes, I also would like to comment on the one on attendance. Colleagues, as partners to the department, we can't speak in their on their part. We can't speak policy language. But I think everyone here is aware of the gazetted, the new gazetted policy around attendance. And if you are not, please contact your most immediate manager or your most immediate circuit manager and be guided there as to what has been mandated to us. It's very important, particularly around attendance, that we do exactly as policy is stipulating. And I know the concern there is that your dashboard is looking red. There's a lot of learners who are absent. And, maybe even when it's time for progression discussions, that red might affect that learner. But it's very important that those considerations be made when the learner was not at school because of rotation, and that be considered and be weighed in during that discussion. But as IK has said, we can't even directly tell you what to do. I think we've seen what the directive is with regards to capturing in this. If you're unclear, comment to your most immediate manager. I hope that's acceptable. I'm looking at the polls. They are at 77%, and we are over time. So at this point, I think I will apologize for going over time and some of the technical difficulty, but I'm pretty sure that it has been a helpful session based on some of the comments we're seeing here. The words of thanks looks like it worked out for us. But I will close the session here, colleagues, and thank you very much for making time to be with us. This is very cold Joburg weather, or wherever you might be in the country. Please continue to engage with these webinars. We spend a great deal of time to make sure that what we present to you is very helpful and is very specific to what's happening to us at the time. So please continue to attend and continue to go back to your dashboard and use it. As you can see, it's a very powerful tool with a lot to offer for us. With that, let me wish you a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on the next one. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. Musa. Thank you so much, colleagues, for taking our time to join the session today. Also, as Musa said, apologies for yesterday for those that actually joined. We'll be seeing you next week with a brand new topic next week, Thursday and Friday, on the same platform.